I followed the advice of the top business influencers to do my first $1 million year as a 29-year-old. And it worked.
Are you hungry enough, willing to fucking eat shit? Are you soft?
I will die climbing the mountain.
Do it! Just do it!
That is, until it ruined my life. This is my experience with the dark side of toxic hustle culture. If you knew me as a kid, you'd know that I never really aspired to be rich. In fact, I thought being rich was kinda dumb because everyone I saw who was rich had to work way too much, and I really didn't want that. I was a hardcore adrenaline junkie, so there was nothing I loved more than skateboarding, mountain biking, and just finding that thrill. Work to me was just a means to an end. As long as I could do my dangerous, exciting hobbies, I could just do as little work as possible and I would be happy. But as I started high school, I was forced to ponder what I actually wanted to do as a long-term career. I already hated school, so no matter what career I considered, it all just kind of seemed like slavery to me. Forcing myself to work on things I didn't care about made me depressed, and the thought of doing that 9 to 5 for the next 50 years made me even more depressed. I started waking up each morning with a feeling like I just didn't care about anything, and I started skipping school, smoking marijuana, cigarettes. I even got prescribed antidepressants, but that just made things worse. All I could think was, if I hate my life this much in high school, how much worse is it going to be when I actually graduate?
You better post a video of you guys shotgunning a beer.
One of my student counselors gave me the option of I could go to school to be a carpenter and I would magically have enough credits to graduate on time. I was in, and I didn't love carpentry that much, but it did pay for me to get way more into my real passion, longboarding.
It's not an uncommon sight on this steep West Vancouver hill.
I would work to save up just enough money to save for plane tickets to Europe, America, Asia, and go race longboards, come back, look at the job postings again, do it all over again. And while I did have the time of my life, this was also really emotionally draining. The extreme highs of these longboard trips, followed by the long, monotonous work in the Vancouver rain, was too much to handle after a while. I felt like it had a lot of potential, but I had no idea what to do with it. And then one day, as I was Googling ideas for my carpentry escape plan, I came across a book that would change my life forever. 4-Hour Workweek.
Want to get out of the rat race and get rich doing it? My next guest's book claims to have the blueprint for living more and working less.
This book literally blew my mind wide open. I had no idea anything like this even existed. The author was traveling all over the world, all while making a lot of money in his online business. And yes, it sounded like some kind of infomercial scam, but the idea was way too tantalizing for me to ignore. I became obsessed with online business. I started listening to 8 or more hours of podcasts every single day, driving to work, while I was working, while I was eating. I even bought a waterproof Bluetooth speaker with a suction cup that stuck to the side of my shower. I suddenly had hope, a vision for my life that actually excited me, and every single day that I spent as a carpenter from that point forward just made me want this even more. But after about a year of learning, I still hadn't actually started anything, and I knew a lot about different business models, but there was a lot of obstacles stopping me from actually starting. I was halfway through the trip of my life I've been dreaming for years. It was a 2-month trip through the Philippines and Japan. I was filming a 6-part longboard video series that would pay for my entire trip and then some. I had worked my ass off to get to this point, and so far, the trip was exceeding all of my expectations. The next race was on a small island in the Philippines called Siquijor, so small that the nearest real hospital was more than 12 hours away on the mainland. It was the first race run of the day. I kicked off the line, got into my speed tuck, and accelerated up to 60 kilometers an hour. And what you see right here is the moment that scared me into starting my first online business. The course marshals failed to keep the motorcycles off the road, and when they saw a group of 6 longboarders coming at them, they swerved right in front of me, missing by literal inches. Now, I've had a lot of close calls and injuries over the years, but this one felt different. As I was walking back up the hill to my friends, adrenaline and fear pumping through my veins, the only thing I could think was, I nearly just died on a remote island in the Philippines, never having even tried to start that business. I knew even before I reached the top of the hill that I was going to start this business as soon as I got back to Canada. I went all in launching my first Amazon products. Every waking hour from after work until I went to bed was dedicated to learning or doing. All the obstacles that previously stopped me seemed silly now. I was going to make this happen no matter what. 6 months after that, I had launched my first 2 products, and 4 months after that, had grown it to about $40,000 a month. And around that time, I started my agency, Kenji ROI, to help other brands grow on Amazon. Eventually, that became the better business, so I sold all my Amazon products and focused my attention on that. Now I had the money to invest in higher level masterminds, so I started surrounding myself with successful entrepreneurs and other people that were doing much better at a higher level than I was. 10 months in, I was now making enough money to quit my carpentry job. I was looking forward to this moment forever, and it felt so good to do it, but truth be told, I was working way more than 4 hours per week. Actually, even more than I was at my carpentry job, and I was doing even less of the things that I love to do. And at first it didn't really bother me, because being a part of this community of other entrepreneurs, pushing each other, feeding off each other's energy was exciting, and I was learning a lot. In this community, nothing was glorified more than revenue. After we hit 50K per month, the next target was 75, then immediately 100, and there was never really any thought of stopping. It was all about grow, grow, grow at whatever cost necessary. And boy, was I about to learn about the costs. As we grew past 100K per month, things started to fall apart. We couldn't hire employees fast enough, all the systems and processes got severely overloaded and needed to be replaced. I was frantically building new systems, onboarding employees, and training them on things that we were in the middle of changing. The results were absolute chaos. I was working 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, and my health began to suffer. This was the most stressful period of my entire life. Then my girlfriend sent me an angry text message. And it wasn't even something that bad. Usually I'm a level-headed person, but at this moment, when she got home, I lost it on her. And worst of all, at the end of the argument, I told her she needs to go stay at her friend's house tonight. I just kicked the human that I loved the most in this entire world out of the house and possibly even ruined our relationship forever. This was a massive wake-up call. I spent the night alone crying and reflecting on my life. How did I end up here? How could I let things get so far off course, and why was I even working this hard in the first place? The thought that I may have just blown it with the woman of my dreams was devastating. I realized the obvious. The reasons I started this business in the first place had been completely forgotten and replaced with the ideologies of my millionaire-obsessed mastermind peers. Somewhere along the way, I stopped caring about freedom and travel and started caring about maximizing revenue and validation from my business peers. And I realized that I subconsciously believed that if I could just make enough money, all my other problems would go away. I felt completely lost. At this point, my identity was solidly linked to being a successful entrepreneur, and that had literally dissolved overnight. Who was I really? I changed so much throughout this journey that I didn't really know how to answer that question. My life as a freedom-loving longboarder seemed long gone, and now, so did this one. I finally took a long, sober look and asked the question, what do I really want from this business? So I knew that living in a van and longboarding every day wasn't worth the stress of barely scraping by financially. I knew my next step had to be somewhere in between. The answer to my question was clear. The top priority in my life was to support a life of freedom, to live the way I want to live for me and my family, to easily afford a lifestyle of fun hobbies and adventures while still having the time to actually enjoy them. And to do this, I needed a high income, but not an insane income. After sitting down and calculating my living expenses and my dream life, I was amazed to find that even after adding expensive hobbies like motorcycle racing and supporting my future kids, it was nowhere near $1 million per year. Heck, it wasn't even half of that. So then why the hell was I killing myself, sacrificing my friends, my hobbies, my family relationships for some arbitrary number? With this clarity, I was going to simplify and systematize as much as possible so I could get back to the root of why I started this whole journey in the first place. I began intentionally surrounding myself with entrepreneurs who still wanted to make money but prioritized quality of life over income. When we get together, we didn't flex revenue numbers or employee counts. We talked about our vision for the life that we want to create. And when we talk about business, it's about ways to make things more streamlined, to improve work-life balance, never to 10x this year or grind or die. And it took a while, but I finally managed to forgive myself for falling so far off track. Despite knowing full well the entire time that money isn't the answer, I don't think I would have truly understood it until I went through this experience myself. I'd much rather get rich slow and enjoy the journey along the way, because nothing is more important than having the freedom to live life the way that we want to live. And I don't know about you, but being a slave to my business isn't a part of that plan. Hustle culture mindset is still useful to get through short periods of intense work, but I propose that instead of glorifying 12-hour days, we glorify people who engineer their lives for maximum freedom.